The Dice Tower is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. This episode is sponsored by TheOp, also known as USAopoly.
The Dice Tower, episode 727, Convention Season.
Welcome to The Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them.
In today's show, Mandi has a few misses. I play with some wooden blocks, and we serve up a nautical game pie. I'm Suzanne Sheldon.
And I'm Mandi Hutchinson.
Welcome back, everybody. It's another episode of the Dice Tower podcast. We're so excited to be here again. Although I'm going to be real honest, Mandi, I'm a little zonked.
Oh, busy playing all those games that I see you posting about online?
Something like that. I'm a little tired today, but I know you got my back in the podcast. So apologies if I'm not as coherent as normal.
I mean, I'm always non-coherent, but it seems to work, so I will pick up the slack.
We love you for who you are. Right?
Yay!
I hope everybody who got to attend the Dice Tower retreat had a great time there. It's been so cool seeing all the photos. A little surreal, I gotta admit, to see all like this crowd of people playing games, but it looks like folks had a ton of fun and we're trying out new games, getting old favorites back to the table. And I'm kind of envious, Mandi. I gotta admit, I couldn't go, but I'm still envious of the folks who did get to go. So I hope you all had a good time.
Absolutely.
And actually, that's where our title poll for the episode comes from today, where we're talking about convention season. As weird and wonky as the last couple of years have been, conventions are easing back in. And here we are. Gen Con starts up this week from the air date. Part of me is glad I'm not going. Part of me is sad I'm not going. But it's happening.
Absolutely.
And there is some exciting stuff coming out there. And I just want to wish everybody who goes, be safe, but have a great time. Not but. And be safe and
have a good time.
Have a wonderful time. I know from all of our industry friends, Mandi, people who are going to Gen Con are working very, very hard on making it a great convention in spite of kind of the unusual nature of this year.
Right.
So may the force be with everyone who's going to Gen Con.
Exactly.
I hope it's awesome. We figured since we're easing back in, why don't we make this title poll about conventions? So head to our Board Game Geek Guild and vote in this episode's title poll, Convention Season, where, hey, we just want to find out what major conventions have you gone to? Now, the industry is blessed with tons of smaller local conventions, and those are awesome too. In fact, they're some of my favorites. But let's talk about the big boys this time. So drop your votes in. It'll be multiple choice this time, so you can pick all the big ones that you've been to. And let's see where are the Dice Tower folks managing to make it to. And yes, we will include I haven't been able to attend because I know that they are tougher to get to for most of us.
Absolutely.
But we know Dice Tower folks are all over the place. So let's see what that looks like. Speaking of title polls, last episode, back in my day, a little bit of the get off my lawn, maybe. Just a tad. In a funny way, right, Mandi?
Exactly.
Okay. We just wanted to talk about, hey, when did you enter the hobby? And I will admit that this question didn't come out of nowhere. And we've been talking about it online a little bit, all this other stuff. So we just dropped off some date ranges in here. And interestingly enough, the date range of 2010 to 2014 had the most votes. 30% of you said that's about when you became a quote-unquote hobby board gamer.
Right.
Lots of people shared stories of being into mass market games and things like that all their lives. But, when did you really feel like you connected with board gaming as a hobby, as a thing that you were investing time and money to and that kind of things? And that date range is definitely big deal. And then the second range was really 2015 to 2019, a little more recently, but kind of that big surge and then kind of that energy carrying forward. There was about 11% of folks the 5 years before that, around 2005, 2005.
Way in the future.
An interesting bump in the 1970s. 10% of you said that you started in the 70s.
Wow, that's fantastic.
which is awesome. I think that these results are super interesting. And I think that when you were looking at the results, Mandi, and reading what people were saying in the comments, a lot of folks were talking about tabletop wargaming as a way that they were really introduced to the hobby years and years ago. I don't think we can underplay how valuable that niche has been.
I worked, so I no longer work with National Defense, but I used to work with a lot of military people and also civilians, and a lot of them would mention to me about war games and how that was like a really big part of the life. And, some of them were of that, age set where they would have been playing, in the 70s. And I'm like, it's funny how we don't really talk about that much, but it's huge for some people.
Oh, for sure. In fact, the local game convention that I help organize here in the Seattle, Washington area it started out primarily as a wargaming convention. And still, it is 60% war games, at least.
Right.
70% war games.
Absolutely.
And 30% are more kind of the hobby-style board games that I typically play. So absolutely full respect to that niche and all the value that it has brought into broadening the board gaming hobby. But let's talk about that spike in 2010 to 2014. And people were even asking in the comments, like, why? And some people mentioned, was it because of the Dice Tower, things like that. And Mandi, will you indulge me? Can I share my comments on that?
Yes, please.
I think it's a couple of big things. Look, Dice Tower is amazing, no question. But what helped make Dice Tower a thing? So the first iPhone came out in 2007. And if you remember when that came out, though, these were luxury items. If you had an iPhone, woo, you had some money, honey, right? But now, flash forward, just like television prices, any consumer electronic prices, right? As they move forward, they get more affordable, that kind of thing. So then think about that 2010, 11, 12. Now iPhones are more common.
Right.
Other smartphones are more common. Your ability to connect with the internet becomes more and more at your fingertips. So your ability to engage with an online community and to discover things or research things that you discover more thoroughly becomes so much easier, I think, in that time frame in a way it wasn't even before, even though the internet was very common.
Right.
So I think that's a huge thing. The other thing is tabletop. And I've seen this through Board Game Geek, but also through other online discussions I have. I don't think we can underestimate how many hobby board gamers the YouTube show Tabletop starring Will Wheaton brought into the industry.
Oh, yeah.
Just massive influence. And I think that's also tied to the whole smartphone and availability of internet and ability to consume content and things like that. But I think Tabletop was massive, and that first aired in 2012. And I've seen dozens and dozens and dozens of people respond to this that, hey, they saw Tabletop. For whatever reason, it drew them into it. And I loved a lot of things about Tabletop. I didn't like a lot of things about Tabletop, to be honest with you. But I fully respect and appreciate what Tabletop brought to board gaming in terms of growing the hobby.
I 100% agree with that. It was an engaging show, right? So even if you liked Will Wheaton and you weren't into board games, it's like, oh, well, this seems kind of fun, good way to get with people. And so I definitely agree with you on the comment that definitely could have brought more people in at that time.
Thank you, everybody, for voting and commenting in our episode poll. Drop your comments about convention season. Mandi, let's talk about some games.
Oh, the games. Yeah.
So, what have you been playing lately?
Oh boy, games played. So let's start off. I had a few today, and I don't think I'm going to have agreeing opinions with Suzanne on maybe one of them, but we'll see.
There's one on here I think we disagree on. That's okay.
I think so. So
we're still friends.
Yes. Oh, yeah. For now. No, I'm kidding. Always. So I'm not going to review Praga Caput Regni this week. I know a lot of people asked because I had posted about it on Twitter. I would like to get a few more plays in before I do that.
It's a big baby. Yeah.
It is. And I want to make sure that I've covered all the areas, different player counts. So next podcast, I will definitely be talking about that. And Suzanne, I'm sure, will jump in because Suzanne has also played it. So.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, so stay tuned for that next podcast. But this podcast, the first game I'm going to talk about now, don't at me because this game is not available to purchase from the store online in-store because it's on Kickstarter. I know. So by the time this podcast airs, the Kickstarter will be finished, but I'm assuming they will have some kind of late backing pledges that can happen. Okay? So I have to do this disclaimer. We don't do this often, but I have to throw that out there. So talking about Tiny Libraries, and that's by TheOp.games, and it was funded. So at the time of this, it was funded. It retails for about $15 Canadian, and it is, I guess it's a deck of 50 cards about that have RPGs from a collaboration, like a bunch of different creators. And each of the cards that are in there, it's a different type of RPG type game. I'm going to say game/activity, and I'll explain why in a second. That's it. And it's very compact, small, so card size you can put in your bag. And some of them are playable solo. Some of them are better with groups, but they will give you the player counts on them. Or by reading them, you can kind of determine which ones are best. So I didn't try all 50. There are a lot, but I tried a few. I did some solo. There were a couple in there that I really liked. So ones that, you can roll a die and then make a choice and then kind of write a story around it. I mean, I guess that's generally how it works, but I could do it solo. I didn't need someone to play it with. And I like anything that encourages kind of creative writing solo. So that I really enjoyed. There were some that came across as a bit more activity-like, so they were very short. Like I think there was like an Incy Wincy Spider one that goes up a pipe, but based on rolling dice will determine how far you can get ahead. And if you roll a number that was less than the number before, then you go back. You know what I mean? So it seemed like a shorter type activity. And then there were some that I thought would be great in like a work or classroom setting. So they had one where people would take business cards and put them in a bowl, and then depending on the business card you pulled, you would create a story based off of that. So I thought things like that are really cool that you could use in a classroom or a work setting, and it would work really well. So all that to say, I like RPGs. It's really hard for me to play them. Time is always a thing, right?
Sure.
Because they can take some time. Even the one-shots, I mean, they're great, but it takes time to prepare and to play. And this is nice in the fact that you can get that kind of feeling of an RPG, but just in a short amount of time. You can play multiple. You can play by yourself. You can play with people. You can play at a convention. Like you can travel with that. So that, to me, I thought was great. So you have different length of time, different groups of people you can play with. And the travel aspect, carrying it with you, I think is wonderful. If you're looking for like a hardcore RPG, this is probably not going to be what you want. Sure, maybe you can make something out of it, but I really don't think that was the intent of this. And they may come back and correct me on that, but I don't feel like it's one that's meant to be like one of those kind of longer, storied out RPGs. So Tiny Libraries for me, I like it a lot. I think for people who are on the go or maybe just don't have the time to commit to maybe those full RPGs, you might just like this in your life. Or if you're like me, a teacher or in a certain setting of office, some of the ones that are in here I think would be really great. And for $15, I mean, that's not a lot of money at all. So Tiny Libraries for me was a win. I enjoyed what I had played from it.
We've talked about this on the podcast before, Mandy, where because we play so many games, sometimes just being different can make a game spark. And I am so charmed by Tiny Libraries. One playing card is a game, or Mandy, an activity. Some of them I can see where you're coming from here. But when you look at Tiny Library as a whole, it is a collection of creativity and imagination, and like any compendium, like any collection. Like I have a lot of these, the 100 best fantasy stories of 2020 kind of collections. Do I like everyone? You know what? No, I don't. But do I find ones that I love? Yes. And do I find ones I like? Yes. Do I find ones that thought provoke me? Yes. And that's what Tiny Libraries, you are not going to like everyone, even if you play through all of them, which chances are you're not.
Sure.
You are not going to like everything in this one.
Absolutely.
But you are going to find something that is fresh and new. You're going to find something that sparks your heart. You are going to find one that you are just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And your mind's going to be blown and you're going to be charmed. And I think that even the concept of it invites exploration as you go through these cards and you're reading them. You're like, oh, what is this about? How could I use this? Or, oh, this sounds like one that me and my friends would really enjoy together. Even just going through it as a product is an experience. It's an experience of discovery. It's an experience of imagination. And I think that makes it just a little treasure and is really, really charming. So I'm glad that you've played, I bet, a few more of them because I have not been able to try the multiplayer yet.
Right.
But even just going through it, I've just been delighted by it as a concept and in execution. You know, the graphics are all different, all this other stuff. It's just, what a cool idea. And I'm really glad they funded, and I hope other people check it out.
Yeah. So, and I think I might have pronounced it plural. It's Tiny Library. So I apologize. It's one library, multiple cards.
First up for me is a Clemens Gerhard's game. I've talked about these a few times. There are these primarily wooden games from a German producer, Clemens Gerhard's, and I am typically a very big fan of them. And I order them from an online store. That's how I get them. And I tend to order multiple when I do, just to, shipping and all that other stuff. Come on, anybody listening to this podcast does the same thing. Oh, I just need one more thing for free shipping.
Absolutely.
I know you're out there. Nobody here's
we all
judging
do
me.
it. We all do it.
Mm-hmm. Today I'm talking about Semiramis, or Semirami. I apologize. I'm not quite sure of the pronunciation. It's designed by Oliver Schott, and I purchased it for $31.
Okay.
And this one makes my brain hurt.
That's good.
Okay, so y'all know those golf tee little solitaire games where, you get like it's like a pegboard and you get golf tees in them and you jump them around over each other and you try, right? So that's what Semiramis is, to the kabillionth level. So you're going to get this, of course, it's Clemens Gerhard's, this beautiful small, maybe 6-inch by 6-inch wooden board with some lines carved into it. And then you're going to get a little bag full of these wooden pieces in 3 colors, green, cream, and orange. And each color has 3 different shapes, a cone, like a little pine tree, and then like a little round bulb thingy. Cool. So you get this little bag of wooden pieces, this wooden board, great. And then you get a small deck of cards. It's a solitaire game. This is a solitaire puzzle game. That's all it is. So the card's going to tell you how to set up the pieces, and then it leaves one open spot on the board. And then you move pieces one at a time into the empty space. As you slide a piece, a new empty space opens up. That's where your next piece can slide. And ultimately, you win the game if you can get all the pieces so that no color or similar shaped piece are adjacent to each other.
Oh boy.
And the spot in the center is empty. That's all you do. It is a beautiful production. It's again, the type of thing with almost every one of the games, you can just leave it on your table because it's gorgeous. Mandy, I'm so tired. My brain hurts. This game, I feel it's like when you watch a murder mystery show, right, a really good one, or read a really good mystery novel, and you're just completely flummoxed. And then the end comes and you go, oh my gosh, what? And then you hit yourself in the forehead because you're like, then you think back and you see, oh yeah, that made total sense. It was all there for me the whole time. I just didn't pick up on it. That's what playing Semiramis is for me. I'm bad at, I talk about being bad at games sometimes. No. I'm so bad at Semiramis. It's not even funny. Thankfully, you just flip over the card and they give you the sequence that actually wins the thing.
Right.
So what I'll do is I'll tackle a puzzle. I'll completely fail. I'll reset it. I'll do it again. I'll fail. I'll reset it. I do it again. And then I get mad and my brain starts to hurt. And so I flip over the card and then I go through the sequence. I'm like, oh my goodness. Are you kidding me? And it's so obvious. And that's playing Semiramis. I think that there will be many people out there that are very much better at this game, and it's going to tickle their brains in a beautiful way. It's a great thing just to have out. But I like the experience. Like, it's a solid experience. I'm just very, very bad at it. Now, what I have found is I got to get in the zone. So I think that that's what it is for me. I got to get in the zone. When I'm in the zone and I do one and I get it and I'm moving the pieces and I feel like I get one done,
right,
the next one somehow feels easier to me. I'm in that rhythm. Oh yeah, you got to do this and this. And if you do this, that's kind of a trap maneuver, that kind of thing. So I got to be in the mood. I got to get in the zone. And then Semiramis is amazing. There's nothing wrong with this game. It's all wrong with my head. That's what I want to make clear here. But I suspect some of you all out there might be awesome at this. And it might just hit a twinge in your brain that is beautiful. So if you like those solitaire games and you want to make it next level, you should check out Semiramis. It's great. It's just, I'm not.
I don't know.
That's Semiramis from Clemens Gerhard's games.
My brain hurts in some of the simpler games, so I'm like, oh boy. But it's good to exercise the brain, so maybe I'll have to give this a whirl. Just saying.
Anyway, Mandy,
Okay.
let's talk about the next game.
Okay, maybe not. Okay, so the next game, this is the one where we might have some differing opinions here, but we will definitely talk them through. So the next game I'm going to talk about is Sleeping Gods, and this is designed by Ryan Lockett, and art is also by Ryan Lockett. And it's published by Red Raven Games. It's for 1 to 4 players, plays in about 60 to 1,200 minutes. That's exactly how it's written on BGG.
Are you kidding me? That's hilarious.
Swear, 1,200 minutes. So, okay.
That's funny.
We'll go with that. And it retails for about $80 Canadian. There is also an expansion. I'm just going to be talking about the base game in this particular podcast. So it is a cooperative game. There are events in the game, and overall a storytelling game. So if you're familiar with Ryan Lockett, you'll know that they do have other storytelling games. So this is something that's in their general wheelhouse. So in Sleeping Gods, this is a game where I think you can play up to 3. I've only played it with 2. So this is why you'll see why the count of people can lengthen the game, but overall you're controlling several characters. But we're going to get to that. So in Sleeping Gods, you and up to 3 friends become Captain Sophie Odessa and her crew. So this is where you're going to be managing a lot of people. And you are lost in a world, and I think this is taking place in 1929 on a steamship called the Nautical, and you're working together to survive the islands, meet new people, potentially fight some baddies while you're out there, seeking out the totems of the gods so you can return home. All right, so that's the goal of the game. So Sleeping Gods is considered a campaign game, and each session can last as long as you want. That's kind of where it's going. So you can take a break, mark it down on a sheet, and then pick up and continue another time, because the game can run a bit longer depending on where you're at in the campaign. And some people just don't have the time. In this game, if you're familiar with Near and Far, you'll see some similarities. There's a book that opens for the map, so you'll have a ship that moves on there. You'll also have an area for baddies or people that are going to attack you. That's going to come out, and there's a place to resolve that. There are lots of cards in this game, so cards that are going to give you access to things that are going to help you to take actions. You have a boat area, so you're going to take actions on this boat, and it could be to get more cards. It could be to unexhaust characters, things like that. This is where you're going to keep your food. You're going to keep your resources like your wheat and your wood and all of these sorts of things. And then it kind of outlines all the actions you can take, such as exploring, which is what I talked about in that open book. Explore different areas. And when you go to explore an area, you have another book, which corresponds with the number in the area that you're going. And you're going to read out the scenario that's going to happen. And then there are usually choices and checks that are going to happen. And checks are usually done. There are no dice. It's usually with the use of flipping a card. So this will be added to a specific strength that you have that you need to check. And that'll determine if you fail or pass. And then there are consequences if you fail. And then there are good things if you don't. So generally, if you are familiar with storytelling games, this is not new for you. And yeah, the goal of the game is to collect, I think in this one, it was like 7 totem poles by the end of this campaign. And you want to try and be successful doing that, depending on the mode you're playing it on, because there's like a brutal mode and a normal mode. Can depend if you just stop and continue to the next game, or you can kind of try it again. So that is also something that will determine how your game is going to go, so to speak. Okay, that's just a general overview, okay? But there's definitely a lot happening. So let us start off with the art on this game, which is no surprise, is lovely. I love the colors. I like all the pieces in the game. I love the books, the way it's done. I mean, I like the art, but I'm kind of drawn to these types of art, the colors and whatnot. So I get that. It might not be for everybody, but I think it fits well with the game, and I enjoy it. I found for me in this particular game, I had an issue with controlling, several characters. Now, depending on your player count will depend on how many you control. In a 2-player game, you end up controlling 4 each, and then the captain is you can kind of both use the captain's abilities. For myself, and this might not be a negative for some people. For me, it's a lot to be like, okay, I'm trying to determine, okay, so this person does this person does this person does this person can help with this person can help with this. You're always having to scan these characters. And for me, I would rather have a character that you can build. Do you know what I mean? 1 character, maybe 2. And even then that's pushing it. I like 1. And that can do different things. But in this, it's kind of pre-done. Each character has a certain thing they can do. So for someone like me, I just found my attention was all over the place. That might be okay for some people.
Sure.
Some people are okay managing that. For me, not so much. I would have preferred one character, even a character possibly that I could build and change throughout a campaign. So that didn't work for me, but like I said, it could work for others. The rulebook is probably where things started badly for me. So I personally found that there were some issues with the way that the rulebook was laid out. Like certain information was at the end of the rulebook that I feel should have maybe been at the beginning. Some key terms, there was a listing of terms. Some were missing. So it was just like trying to struggle to find all of these things. And I was not a fan of the walkthrough. I do find the walkthrough as you're doing it. I had played a little bit of the game before. I had tried another time, so I've played it a few times. But we're like, let's go through the walkthrough. So I've been through the walkthrough twice and then a game without it. But I said, okay, let's try the walkthrough. And even going through the walkthrough, I still did not have a feeling that I knew the game. It says you can kind of just jump right in with this quick start, walk through, set up, but you're still kind of like, okay, I get that I did these things, but I don't what does that mean? So, and maybe because I'm a teacher, right? I might be a little more strict on some of these things, but I feel like if you're going to do an action, why am I doing this? Instead of just do this to do this, but why am I doing it? Otherwise, you just don't retain that information, right? So I found that happened. And I played with someone who had not played it, and they're like, okay, great, I don't understand what I'm supposed to be doing. So guess what? You end up reading the rule book anyway, even though they say, even though they say you don't need to, you do. I highly recommend. Rodney makes a lovely video. That's a tutorial.
Yeah, Rodney Smith. Yep.
Rodney Smith.
Yep.
Exactly. But also you can go through the rule book. So I think that kind of started it off not on a good foot for me to begin with, and then ended up having to come back and kind of relearn things. So that didn't start off in a good direction. So that I think needs a bit of work going forward. And I believe there are a couple erratas that have been published. So keep an eye out for that. I did like, and I played with Ashley most recently, we did like the use of the cards when doing checks. So remember I told you there are no dice. So if you're fighting, for example, or something like that, there's a deck of cards that you're going to flip, and then there's a number that's going to get added to whatever amount of, let's say, strength or perception or whatever it is that you're checking does. And there's another game that does this. It's it's not Mansions of Madness, but it's like, is it Lord of the Rings? There's another one with the theming is slightly different from Mansions, but they uses a similar system, but they use cards to do checks instead of dice. And I like that. And I know when I played with Ashley, she also enjoyed that. So I thought that was really smart in this particular game. So I enjoyed that part of the game very much. And I think removing the dice for that, I think people might like just the way it was used. We also talked about the game itself. Storytelling games with, like I was saying, is synonymous when you think of Red Raven Games, because they've done others before, Above and Below, Near and Far, and now Sleeping Gods. It feels like the system, they have like a system or structure of how their storytelling games kind of work, and it was really good with Above and Below. Then you move to Near and Far, and it was like, okay, you're still kind of sticking to the same system, but it's just slightly outgrowing it a little bit. So it's still fine, but it feels like there just needs to be something updated from that. And I don't exactly know what it is that pinpoints it, but I just feel like the system needed to be like refreshed maybe. And then coming into Sleeping Gods, you're still kind of using the same formula, but it's a much bigger game, and it feels like it's contained. Like I feel like it needs to be, I don't know if it's polished is the right word, or maybe just a different approach to it, but I feel it's being approached in the same way as Above and Below, and it's being approached in the same way as Near and Far, and it feels like it needs to be approached in a different way. I don't really know how to vocalize that, but I don't know if it's an updated system that needs to happen, but I just found it a bit sloggy at one point. There was just a point where it was just like, okay, I'm good. Like I just didn't want to, I wasn't happy to continue, and that to me signifies that's not good. When I play a game, I have no problems playing games that are lengthy at all. I really don't.
Oh yeah.
That's
true.
Exactly.
I know.
When I'm thinking of the time and, this is taking a really long time and I feel like I'm not really progressing, it just didn't capture interest for me in that regard. Finally, The diversity of characters, I did enjoy that. Like that comes back to art, but I did like the depictions of the characters on the cards. So they're, really getting some representation in there. So I'm really happy to see that. I didn't play the solo, but I had a friend who played it and they told me that it was really hard. They found the game really hard.
Just to win or to accomplish things?
Yes, overall. And
Okay.
they found that a bit of a struggle. So I can't say that from personal experience, but I did ask some people who played it solo and that was their take on it. And then the expansion that you can get makes it even more difficult. And it's already difficult to begin with. So that is something to consider. So Sleeping Gods, I think if people enjoy the systems of Above and Below, Near and Far, you'll probably like this. For me, it fell a little short. And I don't know if just a new system or a new way of approaching it needed to happen. It just didn't resonate with me. So Sleeping Gods, unfortunately, was not a hit for me.
Fair enough. I think we have gone through the same game and I just haven't had a chance to really get as deep into it before I want, because I think it's the type of game that you have to really invest in to get the most out of it. And I haven't had that opportunity. So I've only played it a few times at a more surface level. So I suspect I will enjoy this game more than you once I get those plays in, and we will revisit.
Right. And yes, you'll have some thoughts on it. And let's be clear, I'm probably in the minority on this because I believe there are other people who really enjoyed it. So, which is great. But I think you definitely should hear, what they're saying, what I'm saying. And then when Suzanne comes back, what she says, and you can determine if it's the game for you.
On a much faster game, not 1,200 minutes. How about 1 minute, Mandy?
Okay.
Playtime of 1 minute.
Opposite end of the spectrum.
Well, not quite. 60-Second City. This is part of the trend of mass market games. Maybe got a little hobby cred in there. 60-Second City is designed by Ken Gruhl and Quentin Weir, and the art is by Rock Stromwell, published by Buffalo Games, which is one of these publishers that is focused on that space. And you can pick it up for $19.99. And this is a 2-player cooperative tile laying game.
Wait. Cooperative, you say? Okay.
It is. I know. And again, this is a mass market game. It's very affordable. So the components are kind of interesting. You get what are essentially little wooden dominoes. So these little rectangle things are comprised of 2 squares, and each square has some kind of city building illustration. There's like parks and skyscrapers and industrial buildings, just all kind of that iconography, and they have a color. So parks are green and skyscrapers are blue, that kind of thing. You're going to mix those up, place them face down. You got this wooden board with these like little raised grids thing, and the dominoes actually have a groove down them. So they fit very nicely over these raised things so they don't slide around. Nice production element there. And then there are goal cards. And the difficulty of the game is scaled by just adding more goal cards to accomplish. And you're working together. So you're going to set a timer for 60 seconds. And then you are just both going to be taking a tile, flipping over, placing it. Taking a tile, flipping over, placing it. I cannot, like, it's if you try to be thoughtful, you're going to fail. I'm just going to, 60 seconds is not a lot of time.
It totally is not.
The timer's going to beep off and scare the heck out of you because you're trying to make this thing work, and then you score. You try to see how many of the goal cards you've managed to accomplish, and you put them into the score pile. Huzzah! You flip over new so that you have 5 goals you're working on every time, and you play through 5 rounds. So it's not quite 60 seconds. It's actually 5 minutes total, but it is. It's 5 minutes. You get 5 1-minute rounds, and then you get the points you get. It's super duper simple. That's the whole game. And, I like it. Do I love it? I'm more amenable to real-time games than you are in general, Mandy.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
This one got me. It got me. Oh, like more than Fuse, more than a lot of other quote-unquote real-time games, this one just... Because I love tile laying games. I love tile laying games where you get adjacency or grouping bonuses. I just like that style of game. So here we have 60-Second City. The icons and the art is cute and gives me, good feels on that front. And my brain just wants to make it work. Mm-hmm. And that one minute is not a lot of time.
It's true.
Yeah. So I like the game, But oh boy, that time pressure, I could scale it so you get a little more time, but then you wonder how much does that really impact the intent of the game, that kind of thing. I do like that it's cooperative. I think I'm going to try it almost solo. Maybe I'll give myself 2-minute rounds and try it solo and see what happens there. That might be a fun way to play it as well. The tiles on the board are fine. It's funny. The board is wooden. When you flip it over, though, the wood of the board must be very, very thin, because when you flip it over, there's actually like a big hunk of cardboard that they shoved at the bottom to like stabilize it. I mean, it's a $20 game. And I'm not criticizing the component quality. I just found that amusing. You can see where they made choices to make it profitable to produce. But, the way that the tiles sit over the grooves is very, very nice. The card quality is pretty mediocre, but you're not really playing with them. You just lay them out to look at them to score, so it's not a huge deal. There's an element where there's pollution tiles that you put on the board that block spaces, and there's ways you can get through of it. I forgot to mention that. But really, if you like real time and you want to work, like if that puzzly real time thing sounds interesting to you, this is a solid game. For $20, 2 players can have a good time with it. I don't see anything wrong with this game. I'm going to keep it around for a little bit longer to explore it. I think I really do want to try it solo, but maybe I don't know if this is one for you per se, because the time thing for me even got to me.
Yeah.
And I know how you feel about it.
Oh, no. Like, if it got to you, I mean, anybody who's played real time with me, I literally look like a deer in the headlights. It's like, okay, what do I do? Oh my goodness. I get so stressed out. I can't do it. So if it was tough for you, I think I would probably pass out while playing. I don't think I could do it.
Oh, no. And we don't want that. No.
No.
So that is 60 Second City.
Oh boy, that sounds like it'll definitely get the blood pumping there. So a little too much excitement for this girl right here. But I am interested in the world of witchcraft, which is why we're going to be talking about the game Whirling Witchcraft. And I feel like I need to insert a Shakespeare line here. Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. Bonus points if you know what Shakespeare play that's from. One of my favorites. So Whirling Witchcraft is designed by Eric Anderson Sundin. Art is by Luis Francisco and Weberson Santiago. Published by Alderac Entertainment Group, also known as AEG. It's for 2 to 5 players, plays in about 15 to 30 minutes, so not a long one, and it retails for about $28 Canadian. This has simultaneous action selection and variable player powers. So those are some things to look in the game. It's engine building in there, but we'll talk about that. So let's start off by talking about the little cauldrons that are in this game. So cute. You literally get to put them together and then little cubes go on them. Okay, I'm ahead of myself there, but they're so cute. I love it. So in Whirling Witchcraft, you're going to start with what they call recipe cards. And you're going to have your little cauldrons that I was talking about. And you're also going to have a board where cubes are going to go on, which are ingredients. And then there's a little circle area on the top, which is where you want to get cubes, because if you get, I believe it's 5 cubes into that circle area on your board, you win. Okay, so the game goes pretty fast. When you start the game, you're also going to get a card which has your player power, so you get to choose one. And on that card, it has like an ability that you can do, and it also lets you know the starting materials that you're going to have, so the starting ingredients on your board. Okay, this is important because you need these ingredients to fill up your recipe cards. Now, your recipe cards have kind of 2 sides to them. So the top part is what you need to fill in to get the bottom part of the card. Does that make sense? I hope that wasn't confusing. So you have to get all the ingredients on the top to get the things on the bottom. And what you're trying to do is build up a line of these cards. So when you produce certain ingredients, you can move them to other cards. So let's say I had 4 cards in my display, so 4 recipe cards, and I'm trying to complete the others. You can use ingredients from your board, but you can also use ingredients from cards you've completed and then move them to another card, complete those ones, and then move them to another card. You're like, well, who cares? Like, why does it matter? Just take them off the board if you have them. Here's where it gets a little tricky. Ingredients that are left on the card so that you have not used get put into your little cauldron. So you're like, that's great. I got some extra stuff. No. That cauldron now moves to, I think it's in clockwise order, to the other player, and they get to take those cubes and put them on their board in their ingredients. So they have access to those to finish their recipes. This is where you have to pay attention to other players, because you kind of want to feed them stuff they can't take. Because when the cauldron comes back to you, if any of your cubes are left on the cauldron, remember that circle I told you about that's on your board? They're going to go into that circle. And remember what I said? Once you have 5 ingredients in that circle, you're going to win the game. So this is where you do have to kind of pay attention to what everybody's doing, try and getting a nice kind of, this is why I mentioned engine building. You want to try and get a nice row of cards that work together so you can, produce, use them on the next one, produce, use it on the next one. So that's why it's really important. So there are also what they call arcana tiles in the game. So some of the cards have symbols on them. And when you get 2 of a certain symbol, then you can use an ability for that specific symbol in the game. Okay. And some of the powers that you have, like I think I had a power that allowed me to switch the way the card was placed. So if I didn't like what the requirements were, I could actually switch it the other way. So then the requirements are on the bottom now, but I can use the top portion now as the requirements instead. So it just flips what's required. So things like that, which really help. So yeah, so once you have 5 cubes in that little circle on your board, you win. So it goes pretty fast. And that's what happened in our games when we played. It was like, play. Oh, done. This is like happened. And I was very bad. I think I ended up giving my friend Stefan like 3 cubes in one turn. I'm like, wow, somebody wasn't paying attention. Me. So, yeah. So this game is definitely on the lighter side. It does have some planning and thinking with the engine building. So if you are into engine building, I think you will like this. It had a very kind of similar feeling to, what's the key game we played with the cards, Suzanne?
Key Flow?
Key Flow. Like it kind of felt like that a little bit.
Okay.
Had that kind of vibe to it.
Flow.
Yeah, but on a lesser level, but it's a similar kind of idea. I think for my group, I don't think it was a hit with my group specifically. They just were like, okay, I see where it could, definitely work where you have that interactivity because you definitely need to pay attention to what everyone's doing. You can't just focus on your stuff or you're just going to give away the win like I did several times. So this is why it's important to keep track of what you're doing and what others are doing. So that's great. Like it encouraged that interaction, which I'm here for. Encourages the engine building, like I was saying before, getting those cards out and trying to get ones that are going to work with other cards so you're not having a ton of ingredients left over to give to somebody else. Making use of those arcana powers I thought was really useful and I thought was really smart in the game because it could give you a little bit of an edge. Maybe you're struggling, something to help you out to kind of get you back on track. So I thought that was really good. This is not a game for me. I think it was fun. It was light. I think families would enjoy it. I think people who are into like light engine building are going to enjoy it. I love the theme, the colors. The box was really big for what was in it. That was another thing that I didn't quite understand. So I have a thing about that. Ever since Essen, when I saw Suzanne breaking down a box for a game that had like 3 pieces in it. Ooh.
Yep.
But the rule book was clear, easy to understand. It just wasn't a game for me. Does it make it a bad game? Absolutely not. So it's definitely a game you should try. Plays really quickly. And definitely, like I said, for the reasons mentioned before, if you're into those things, you will like it. And it's light and quick. So Whirling Witchcraft. I didn't care for it for my particular gaming group, but I think a lot of people will enjoy it.
All right. And to wrap up games played, K3.
Ooh.
Yep, just letter K and the number 3. K3 from Helvetique. This is designed by Philippe Preux, and it sells for about $30. When you get K3, it's in a block box. It's like a square, a cube box, and yellow, and it's got some cool graphic design on it, all this other stuff. When you open it up, it's just a bag full of little hexagon pegs or dealy boppers pieces. I'm not sure what to call them. I'm sorry. And in a variety of colors and the rule book.
Right.
K3 can be played competitively or cooperatively, which is interesting, especially because there's virtually no rules changes in how you play. You've got all these little hexagons of different colors, and what you're going to do is you're going to mix them all up, and then you're going to put 9 in a row next, kind of smushed up next to each other in the middle of the table, and that's going to form the base of the central pyramid. Then players will just randomly out of the bag start drawing 3 at a time until you have a certain number of hexes in front of you based on player count. Then everybody takes the hexes they have and they build their own personal little pyramid in front of them. And then players take turns well, theoretically, taking actions. But mostly you are going to be taking a hex off of your pyramid and putting it onto the central pyramid. Now, when you place a hex, you've got these little hex pieces nudged up against each other. You're going to put yours in the middle on the line between two pieces. So, they form a triangle headed up. And so you technically have a piece supported by two other pieces underneath it. To place the piece onto the central pyramid, one of the pieces below it must share a color. Now, if two of the pieces below it are the same color, then you actually pay a penalty. You're just going to keep on going around, taking turns, putting things up. There's some beige hexagons that are wild, and everybody gets a certain number of those. And there are white hexagons that actually let you skip a turn. You remove them from your pyramid, and then you don't do anything. You don't place anything. Very strategic move. And you keep on going, and in the competitive mode, the last player standing, so the last person who can continue to place a piece legally on the main pyramid wins the game. And in cooperative mode, if you manage to complete the pyramid as a team, then you have won the game. But really, those rules in terms of setting up your personal pyramids and placing pieces are the same, whether you're playing competitively or cooperatively. And I think that is cool, especially because it totally works. Mind blown. It works. So really, folks, what this is it is an abstract programming game. Because what happens is you get this random assortment of hexagons, and you've got that seated pyramid in the center, that line of colors. So what you need to be doing is looking at that line, looking at your hexagons, and planning from the top down. Because the pieces that you're going to have access to at the top of your pyramid are the pieces you'll have first. As you go down your pyramid and you start to, open up new pieces available to place, right? Those are going to be based on what you placed before. So you want to make sure that you have colors spread out, that you can strategically have options as you move forward. It is a planning and programming game. It's just a very abstract game. I love programming games. Like, programming is one of my favorite mechanisms in board games. Here we have an abstract game that brings that in. It does it well. The rules are very, very simple. The components it's just wooden hexagons, but they're very chunky and they're very nice quality, all that good stuff. I suspect if you have color vision deficiency, you may struggle with this one a little bit. So that is a downside to it. Beyond that, I love this game. I played it. My brain went boom. I've played it competitively. I have played it cooperatively. I like it both ways. I think it's a very clever design. It's a huge keeper for me, and I hope you check it out. That's K3.
Yeah, programming games are hit or miss for me. I find
Sure.
There was one we played, Minions.
Maximinions.
I liked that a lot, actually, and I thought they did that really well. And I find when it's done well like that, then I'm into it. But then there are some where, like, if you screw up your programming, like, that's it, it's over. And that's where it's like, I can't recover. So is this that type of game where it's not as forgiving if you maybe kind of make a little...
No, I think you'll like this one, Mandy. I honestly think you do. I'd love to play it with you sometime. You got to come down and visit. We were talking about that earlier. Get down here.
Gotta do
I will
the
teach it to you. I think this one is one that you would like.
Oh, very excited. Yay!
That's it for the games we've been playing this episode. We'll have more next time. But right now is my favorite time. It's pie time. No soggy bottoms.
TheOp.games has been creating games and memories for 25 years. From party games like Telestrations and Blank Slate, to game night favorites with Harry Potter, Hogwarts Battles, and the Rising series, to new games like Hues and Cues and Tapple. TheOp is a one-stop shop for game night. And guess what? We have a new promo code. Exclusive for Dice Tower listeners. 10% off entire purchases at TheOp.games. It's available on all games, puzzles, and accessories. Free shipping available on purchases for $49 or more. It's available for US residents only, and the code is Dice Tower.
And now, it's time to order up a slice of game pie.
Okay, ahoy, mateys! We've got a great pie for you today. That was my best Popeye, by the way. So if you hadn't figured it out by now.
Oh boy, that was a thing that you just did.
I
Okay.
know. I forgot what he said. I just remember having the laugh with the little corn.
Okay, we got to move on.
Sorry. Okay. So if you haven't figured it out by now, no, it's not about Popeye. It is about nautical. The theme is nautical, so nautical pie. I'm trying to think what would make a good actual nautical pie. Like a lemon meringue, maybe? No.
I mean, citrus is good to stave off scurvy.
Also a good point. I didn't think about that. I was just thinking of like the billowing clouds, like when you're sailing. And okay, I'm getting a little too literal
I mean,
here.
you could put blue food dye in a vanilla custard pie
Okay.
and have it look like water. Okay, we got to move on.
Okay,
Talk
sorry.
about the games.
I think I'm hungry, so this is why I'm talking about the pies like that. Okay, everybody,
Seriously.
sorry. Okay, so nautical pie today, and my first slice of nautical pie is underwater cities. So we're looking. I got a little ahead of myself here. We're trying to focus on games that are specifically nautical. So you're like, oh, that seems pretty straightforward. Well, sometimes the whole pirate theme comes into play here, which is fine.
Sure, a lot of them.
Right, and we had a little discussion about that. That could be a different game pie. So we're specifically looking at the kind of nautical theme. Okay, so my first one is underwater cities. Ooh, chef's kiss. This game, so good. Like, so
Yep.
good. It is definitely a meatier, crunchier game. This is a Vladimir Suchy game, so if you're familiar with his types of games, you'll know that there's like a lot going on, but it's so satisfying in this game. So I love it because, you've got your cards, and using your cards are going to help you kind of make your little ecosystem work, and I get blocked so many times in that game. I want to do this, and like someone's already taken the action. I can't take it. Then I need to finish all my little eco bubbles and get the path going so I can get points. And anyway, I get very worked up about it, but that's a good thing because it is fantastic. So you're trying to create the best kind of livable world ecosystem, if you will. So I have the expansion as well, which I also really enjoy. This game is great, and I have no problems playing this when it comes to the table. So underwater cities, heyo, very good.
Totally in 100% absolute agreement with you. Good choice.
Thank you.
First slice up for me, a smaller game, Turn the Tide, also known as Land Unter. This is a Stefan Dora game. I love Stefan Dora games. Such a great designer. But Land Unter, or Turn the Tide, is essentially a card game, and you're going to be playing cards to get cards. Like the highest value is going to get these other cards that are laid out that have lifesavers on them, because thematically, I'm not sure how this happened. You are rescuing sheep in the ocean.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It happens, I guess.
Sure.
So you're playing these cards, and then there's penalties if you play the highest card, and then you try to rescue as many of them with little lifesavers on the cards, and then you pick up your playing hand and you pass it clockwise. So it's an incredibly clever game. It has elements that, quite frankly, I haven't seen combined in games since then. It still feels fresh, even though the game's like 20 years old, I think. So Land Unter, Turn the Tide, great card game. Rescuing sheep from the water. That's nautical, right?
Yeah, I was trying to think of a really good joke there, but nothing was coming to me. So the next game on my list, I'm going to be a little rusty here on this one because it's been a while, but I do enjoy it, is Port Royal. I always want to say Royale, but there is no E at the end of it, so it is Port Royal. I don't know why I want to pronounce it differently.
Yep.
And this is an Alexander Pfister game. Yay, which, one of my favorite designers, so I'm here for it. And this is a card game. And this is great because you have cards that have, so I like games where it's cards and you don't have a ton of components, but you can still do lots of things. Like, the cards have the money symbols on them. You're looking at ships that you're trying to acquire. It's one of those games that I passed up for a long time. And then I heard so many people say, oh, it's so good, you need to have it. And then I went to Essen and just bought like all the parts. I think there were like a whole bunch of expansions. And I was like, this game is so good. And it's just a simple card game. And yes, this has ships in it. I'm sorry, I know we weren't talking pirate, but it was bordering the line here. So, well, you've played this one, Suzanne?
Yeah, I love it. It's a great choice.
So remind me. So I know there's like drafting and stuff in this game. Sorry, it's been a long time, everybody. I'm a little rusty here.
Well, it's kind of got to push your luck, where you're flipping over cards, and then if you dilly-dally too long, If you flip over a ship that already matches a ship that you already have, you kind of bust. And each card, to your point, it's Alexander Pfister, and it has multi things on it that you have to balance. But yeah, it's a dandy little game, and I think it's a great choice.
Yeah, definitely you should try Port Royal if you have not.
Next slice up for me, Captain Sonar. Mandy, I don't think this is going to be your game, huh?
Captain Sonar and I, there is one role I will play in Captain Sonar, and this is literally what I do. Okay. Yeah, ready on left side for torpedoes. Yeah, ready. That is the only role I am doing, and if you've played the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Fair enough. Captain Sonar is a team game in which you play competing submarine crews. Each crew member gets their own role with a specific little player board, and you are chasing each other around trying to blow up your opponent's submarine. It is real time. It is stressful. I love it. It's so much fun. But yeah, definitely it's got that high pressure real time thing, Mandy. I get it.
Ooh.
Each role is a little bit different. I think it's a clever game. Doing that underwater thing. I like being the captain personally, but hey, your mileage may vary.
No.
Captain Sonar, a really cool nautical game.
Yeah, that's I'll play it, but I only play one role, and that's all. But yes, I do see why people would like it. Next one on my list, well, it's a Feld. I mean, surprise. One was going to make an appearance. Of course. Now, there were two ways I could have gone here, and we had talked about one, Aquasphere, which didn't come on the list, but that game gets a lot of talk. Some people really like it, or some people don't like it. And I like it also because I'm very good at it. That's a whole other thing. We'll come back to that another time. But I chose to put Amerigo. So Amerigo is so good. And I don't know if it's just the tower in the game that like makes me all excited when you like drop the little cubes and it's like
the
down.
cube tower, sure.
Yes, it's so fun. I know. You're all thinking if you've not played it, you're like, who cares? It's very fun. You need to try this. But in the game, it does have... Oh, gosh, it does have pirates, doesn't it? Yeah, it kind of does. Okay, well, there's a part of the game where you can be attacked by pirates, which is bad. Basically, cubes are coming in a certain area, and it's not good for you on your board. But that's the only part. Other than that, you're exploring the board with your ship. Tiles are out, and you want to try and kind of quote-unquote conquer those areas or kind of take over those areas on the board. I really like this game, not only because of the whole allocation of cubes using the tower to the different colors and then selecting and then doing actions based on that. It just has a few fun things, and you got to manage, like your defenses because they can be taken down from the pirates. Just a lot of fun things going on, and it's a Feld. We all know how that goes. Lots of ways to get points. So Amerigo, if you haven't played it, you should. It's a big box, but so worth it.
In a much smaller box is my next slice, Nautilian. This is a game in the Oniverse series from Shadi Torby, and I love it. It's a dice game, and you are trying to get your crew members that are tokens into the Nautilian, your ship. You roll dice, and you have to allocate one to this ship, one to the Phantom submarine, and one to the Dark House, and you're just manipulating these ships as they go down this path that you've built out. Like so many in this series, there's multiple little mini expansions that you can play around with. And I just this is probably a top 5 for me in that series, which there's not that many, so maybe it doesn't sound. But Nautilian, I love it. And it's definitely nautical.
Yes. I mean, it's kind of in the name there a little bit. So definitely
there you go. Exactly.
I haven't played this one, so maybe one I need to check out.
I like this one a lot.
Yeah, it seems like it sounds really good. The last one on my list here, well, it has had to make it. Deep Sea Adventures. Who does not love the Deep Sea Adventures? I find it hilarious because I remember my friend who never quite makes it to the submarine and always makes this face like, let me in. So if you haven't played the game, it's in a small box, and this is an Oink from Oink Games, and a small box, but lots of fun. And in the game, you're trying to go deeper into this kind of path of treasures and try and pick up treasures that are going to be worth points for you. The deeper you go, the better the points. But you also need to make it back to the submarine before all the shared air, so everybody uses the same air supply, runs out. If not, well, you're stuck outside, all your treasure gets dropped. Then we go into another round, but so far, you don't have any points. So after 3 rounds, whoever has the most points wins. This is a great game. I don't even care. Like, it's one of those small games. I will play this anywhere. Anybody I've shown it to loves it. Anyway, it's just something you need to have in your collection if you haven't tried it. Deep Sea Adventures, very fun game.
Excellent, excellent choice. And hey, they've got that app version coming out, at least for the Nintendo Switch, if not other platforms as well.
Yeah.
And it's looking snazzy.
I forgot.
It's looking real good.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. And for the last slice of nautical pie from me, Fleet Dice. Now, Fleet is a great game too, but Fleet Dice, the roll and write, I mean, come on. Just like you had to get a filled in, I had to get a roll and write in.
That's fair.
And Fleet Dice is a great roll and write game in which you're managing a fishing fleet. And there's different types of fishing boats, and there's different stations and different town buildings. But ultimately, you are rolling dice and allocating them. And where Fleet Dice really starts to kick in is it's a combo-tastic game. As you start unlocking bonuses, as you work down different ships and gain more fish for more points, and you can actually pick different paths towards victory within these two little sheets that you put in front of you. I love Fleet Dice, great roll and write game, and a great nautical game.
Yes, that is a good one. I have to say, I was very happy I backed that one. It's excellent, and I played a lot. So, good choice. Good choice.
Well, thank you, Mandy. Alrighty, folks, that's going to wrap up our episode of the Dice Tower Podcast this time, but we'll be back in a couple of weeks. Hey, send us your questions, send us your game pie suggestions, send us your episode poll title suggestions. We're open to it all. You can reach me at Suzanne at Dicetower.com.
And you can reach me at Mandi, that's Mandi with an I, at Dicetower.com.
As always, it is a pleasure and privilege to be part of your bigger extended board gaming family. Thank you so much for listening and joining us and voting in the polls and sending us emails and chatting with us on social media. It's awesome, and we love you for it. Thank you. Next episode, 728. And hey, Mandy, you know what? I don't know what the guys are talking about.
It's a surprise. Surprise!
It'll be a surprise. You gotta tune in because it's I think when they would normally be recording, Tom's gonna be at Gen Con, but Eric won't be. So I think there's a little bit of work in the schedule there. So It'll be a surprise to me too.
Absolutely.
Until next time, I'm Suzanne Sheldon.
And I'm Mandy Hutchinson.
And you've been listening to The Dice Tower.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This podcast is sponsored by listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vassal Memorial Fund is an organization dedicated to helping gamers in need. Learn more about the fund's mission and how you can help at jackvassal.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom, Suzanne, Mandy, and Eric with assistance from Roy Canaday and Rob Searing. Our theme is composed by Timothy Pinkham and arranged by Matt Bellier. Let us know what you think of the show by posting to the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com, following the Dice Tower on Twitter, or by emailing us at podcast@dicetower.com. And don't forget to visit the other shows in the Dice Tower Network at dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. All right, everybody, it's that time again. 2 truths and a lie. So I'm going to go first to reveal mine from last episode. Here we go. So, starting off with Acme characters, I like Bugs Bunny, I like the Animaniacs, and I like Foghorn Leghorn. If you said I like the Animaniacs was a lie, you would be correct. They were fine, but they weren't my favorite. It was okay.
Boy.
I know. It didn't resonate with me. So, there you go.
The opinions expressed by Mandy Hutchinson on this podcast do not reflect the opinions of all members of the Dice Tower.
All right. Last episode, I said I never took a bus to school, I never got suspended from school, and I never skipped a class at school. And the lie is that I never skipped a class. Of course I skipped classes. Are you kidding me? Hello, off-campus privileges. Heck yeah.
Oh, I did it and got busted. So, yeah, that was the thing. All right, so new for this episode, here we go. I'm on a TV fix. I have a Hulu account. I have a Disney account. And I have a Netflix account.
And new for me that I'm on a video game fix, Mandy.
Yeah, all right.
New for me, I've got WarioWare Get It Together pre-ordered. I've got Metroid Dread pre-ordered. And I've got Pokemon Brilliant Diamond pre-ordered.
Oh boy, lots of fun stuff, everybody. Good luck.